I retired on a Friday. Monday morning, I woke up at 5:47 a.m., same time I'd been waking up for 40 years, and I laid there staring at the ceiling thinking, now what? Nobody prepares you for that question. Nobody. They give you a cake. They give you a card signed by people whose last names you never learned. They shake your hand. They say, "Enjoy it, Ray, you earned it." And then they go back to their desks, and you walk out to the parking lot, and you sit in your car for 20 minutes because you don't know where else to go. That was 14 months ago, and I'm only just now beginning to understand what happened to me. My name is Raymond Earl Cooper. Ray. Nobody calls me Raymond except my mother, and she's been gone 11 years, and sometimes I still turn around when I hear it. I am 65 years old, born in Memphis, Tennessee, 1959.
The same year Berry Gordy founded Motown, which my daddy said meant I came into the world with rhythm already in my blood. Daddy was a preacher. Everything was a sign with him. Thunder meant God was rearranging furniture. A good harvest meant somebody in the family had been praying right. I grew up believing the whole world was in conversation with you. You just had to learn to listen. I am the son of Reverend Walter Cooper and Mrs. Dolores Cooper. Daddy pastored Greater New Hope Baptist Church for 31 years. Mama taught third grade for 26 years and raised 4 children in between, which I believe qualifies her for sainthood. I am the second oldest. Older sister Brenda, who lives in Memphis still and calls me every Sunday whether I answer or not. Younger brother Calvin, who we call Cal, who is the funniest person I have ever met in my life and also the most irresponsible. And those two things are completely connected. And the baby, Denise, who became a doctor and is the family's greatest achievement, and she knows it. I am a father. 1 son. Elijah. 34 years old, lives in Chicago, works in tech, makes more money than I ever did, and has the grace not to mention it. Elijah and we are a work in progress. I'll come back to that. I am divorced. 17 years now. Carol and I were married for 16 years, and the divorce took less time than the marriage, but cost about the same. We are civil, we are even occasionally friendly. We are what two people become when they stop being enemies and start being honest about the fact that they just wanted different things and neither one of them was wrong. And I am a retired construction foreman, 40 years. I started at 25 swinging a hammer for Metro City Construction in Memphis, worked my way up to foreman by 32, moved to Atlanta at 38 for a bigger project, and just stayed. 40 years of early mornings, hard hats, blueprints, and the particular satisfaction of watching something rise out of nothing. That's who I am on paper. That's who I thought I was, period. Let me tell you about a man who builds things his whole life and one day realizes he never built himself. Because that man is me. I put up buildings, hospitals, schools, a hotel downtown that I drove past for 10 years just to see it standing there, to say I helped make that. There is something about construction, about physical, tangible work, that feeds a particular hunger in a man. You can point to it. You can say, I was here. I made something that will outlast me. But I was so busy building everything else that I neglected the structure closest to me, my own foundation. I grew up with a very specific idea of what a man was supposed to be. My father was a good man. I want to say that clearly and first because everything else I say about him has to sit next to that truth. Walter Cooper was a good man. He loved his family. He provided. He was present in the ways that counted. At the dinner table, at our school events, in the front pew of his own church on Sunday mornings, which sounds obvious, but preachers' kids will tell you it is not always guaranteed. But my father did not talk about his feelings, ever. That was not the world he came from. He came from a world where a black man in the South survived by being unreadable. You did not show weakness. You did not show fear. You did not let the world know where your soft places were because the world had a history of finding those places and exploiting them. So Daddy was strong, publicly, privately, always. When his own father died, I saw him cry exactly once, at the graveside for about 45 seconds, and then he straightened his tie, and that was that. He preached the eulogy himself, dry-eyed, voice like iron. I watched that. I absorbed it. I became it. 40 years of construction sites will reinforce that too. You don't show weakness on a job site. You don't talk about your feelings at 6 a.m. with 30 men waiting for direction. You assess. You decide. You move. Emotion is a luxury for people whose jobs don't depend on other people's safety. Or at least that's what I told myself. The divorce hit me harder than I admitted to anyone. Carol and I had been together since we were 23 years old. College sweethearts, sort of. Yeah, we met at a party, dated for 2 years, got married because that's what you did and because we genuinely loved each other. Had Elijah at 26, built a life. But what I know now, that I didn't know then, is that I treated my marriage the way I treated a job site. I managed it. I provided for it. I showed up and did the work. But I was not present in it, not emotionally. Carol used to say, and I didn't understand what she meant for years, she used to say, "Ray, you are in this house, but you are not in this marriage." I thought she was being dramatic. She was being accurate. She needed a partner. She needed someone who could sit with her and talk, really talk, about fear and hope and doubt and joy. She needed someone who could say, "I'm struggling," without it feeling like a confession of failure. She needed intimacy that wasn't just physical. I didn't know how to give her that, because nobody ever taught me, because I had learned so thoroughly to seal the inner room that I had forgotten there was a door. When she said she wanted a divorce, I felt two things simultaneously. I felt blindsided, and I felt relieved. The relief scared me more than the blindside. Because what does it mean when the ending of your marriage feels like fresh air? It means you had been holding your breath for a long time and didn't know it. Elijah stopped talking to me for 2 years after the divorce. He was 17. He blamed me, which was fair, and he told me so directly, which I respected even though it broke something in me. He said, "Dad, Mom was lonely for years. You were right there and she was lonely. How does that happen?" I didn't have an answer. I have one now, but I didn't then. He came back around eventually. College helped. Distance has a way of softening the edges of things. He came back around, but cautious, the way you come back to something that burned you. Careful. Measuring. Even now at 34, he holds something back with me, and I understand it, and I am working every day to show him that the man he knew is not the only man I am capable of being. That's the sentence I came to therapy to learn to say. I started therapy at 63. I know. I know. My buddy Marcus, we've been friends since we were 28, met on a job site. He was the electrician. I was the foreman. We've seen each other through everything. Marcus had been in therapy for 5 years and kept quietly suggesting it. Not pushing, just suggesting, leaving the door open. I kept walking past the door. Because therapy, where I come from, where I was raised, in the tradition I was raised in, therapy was for people who couldn't handle things. Therapy was for weakness. You had a problem, you prayed about it. You had a burden, you gave it to God. You had pain, you pushed through it. That was the framework. And I believe in prayer. I still do. But I've learned that sometimes God answers prayer by sending you a good therapist. Her name is Dr. Patricia Wynn. She is 60 years old. She is black. She has zero patience for avoidance. And she is the most direct person I have ever sat across from in my life. And I spent 40 years managing construction crews. First session, she asked me one question, just one. She said, "Raymond, when was the last time you asked yourself what you actually want?" I sat there for a long time. Then I said, "I'm not sure I know how to do that." She said, "I know, that's why you're here." Here is what nobody tells men about retirement. Work was not just work. Work was identity. Work was structure. Work was worth. When you are a man of my generation, my background, you are what you do. That is not a choice. It is a formation. It happens to you before you're old enough to question it. Your father worked. His father worked. Work was dignity. Work was how you proved you were a man, how you proved you were a provider, how you proved you had value. So when the work stops, the question underneath it, the one you never had to face while you were busy, that question surfaces. Who are you when you are not useful? I did not have an answer. And the silence of that question was louder than any job site I ever ran. I started doing what I always do when I'm uncomfortable. I stayed busy. I offered to help Cal with his contracting work. He does small residential jobs, nothing like what I was used to, but it was something to do with my hands. I volunteered at the church building committee. I fixed everything in my apartment that didn't need fixing. I reorganized my garage 3 times. Marcus finally sat me down one evening over dinner and said, "Ray, man, you need to stop running." I said, "I'm not running, I'm staying active." He said, "You're running. You've been running your whole life. The job was how you ran. Now the job is gone and you're still running, just in smaller circles." Marcus has a gift for saying the thing that lands like a brick. Dr. Wynn gave me an assignment 4 months into our sessions. She said, "I want you to spend one Saturday doing only things you enjoy, not things that are useful, not things that help someone else, things that bring you pleasure. Just you." I said, "That's it?" She said, "Come back and tell me how it goes." I thought it would be easy. Y'all. It was one of the hardest days I have had in recent memory. I woke up that Saturday and I sat at my kitchen table with my coffee and I thought, what do I enjoy? And I genuinely could not answer. I knew what I was good at. I knew what I was needed for. I knew what people expected of me. But what did I enjoy? What did Raymond Cooper, the person, not the foreman, not the provider, not the fixer, and what did he like? I sat there for 45 minutes. Then something came to me from so far back it was almost like a dream. Music. I used to play guitar. High school, a little in college. Nothing serious. I was never going to be a musician. But I loved it. I loved the way a chord felt under my fingers, the way a song could take a feeling that had no words and give it a shape. I stopped playing in my mid-20s because life got busy and the guitar ended up in a closet and then in a storage unit and then I'm not even sure where. That Saturday, I drove to a music store, and I stood there like a man who had been away from something for so long he'd forgotten the language. The young man working there couldn't have been more than 25. He showed me around without making me feel foolish. I bought a guitar. I went home and I sat on my couch for 3 hours and I played. Badly. Terribly. My fingers didn't remember anything. I had to look up basic chords on YouTube like a beginner. It was one of the best days of my recent life. I called Elijah that night. We talk on the phone every couple of weeks. We're not estranged, we're just careful with each other, like I said. But that night I called him and I said, "Elijah, I need to tell you something." He got quiet. The way you get quiet when you're bracing. I said, "I know I wasn't the father you needed me to be. Not when you were growing up. I was present physically and I was absent in the ways that actually matter. And I know that. And I'm not calling to make excuses. I'm calling because I'm in therapy and I'm learning things about myself that I should have learned 30 years ago. And I need you to know that I see it. I see what I did and what I didn't do." He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Dad, I've been waiting 5 years to hear you say that." We talked for 2 hours. We talked the way I never talked to my own father. We talked about regret and about hope and about what we both wanted from each other going forward. He told me things about his childhood that I didn't know I had missed. I told him things about my own childhood that I had never told anyone. At one point he said, "Grandpa Walter, did he ever say he loved you, like out loud?" I thought about it. "He showed it," I said, "but said it not often." Elijah said, "That's a heavy thing to pass down without meaning to." 65 years old, my 34-year-old son teaching me something about generational inheritance in a phone call on a Saturday night. I told him I loved him before we hung up. I told him clearly, directly, without qualification. He said, "I love you too, Dad." That was worth everything. I want to talk about black men and silence, because I think it might be killing us. Quietly, slowly, in ways the autopsy doesn't always catch. We are taught so early to be strong, to be unbreakable, to handle it. And I understand where that comes from. I come from a people who had to be strong to survive, who could not afford to break down, whose breaking down could cost them everything. That strength is real, and it is earned, and it is part of who we are. But strength without softness is just armor. And you can't be intimate with someone wearing full armor. You can't be a real father in armor. You can't grieve in armor. You can't heal in armor. I wore mine for 40 years. I called it being a man. What I was actually doing was being alone in a very crowded life. The statistics, if you look at them, will tell you that black men have among the lowest rates of seeking mental health support of any group in this country. And I understand every reason why. The stigma, the cultural framework, the very real history that makes black people justifiably cautious about certain systems, the cost, the lack of access, the shortage of black therapists who understand your specific experience. I understand all of it, and I'm standing here to tell you that understanding why the door is hard to open is not the same as opening it. Open the door, whatever your door is. Let me tell you about the men in my Thursday group. Dr. Wynn referred me to a men's therapy group, 6 of us, black men, ages 52 to 68. We meet Thursday evenings at a community center in southwest Atlanta. We've been meeting for 8 months. I will not share their stories, those belong to them. But I will tell you what that room feels like. It feels like the room I needed when I was 25, when I was getting divorced, when my son stopped speaking to me, when I was working so hard I didn't notice my own life going by. 6 black men sitting in a circle telling the truth about fear, about regret, about fathers who didn't know how to say I love you and how that silence got passed down like an heirloom, about marriages that ended, about children who grew up and became strangers, about retirement and the terror of the question underneath it, about bodies starting to slow down when the mind still feels 40, about mortality. The first night I sat in that circle, I didn't say a word. I just listened. And what I felt, listening, was something I had not felt in a very long time. I felt less alone. I am learning some things at 65. I am learning that it is never too late to change the conversation with your child, that the door between a father and a son can be opened from either side at any age, but someone has to reach for the handle. I reached for it. Late. Too late for some things, not too late for everything. I am learning that the guitar does not care how long you've been away. It just wants you to come back. I am learning that sitting with discomfort, just sitting with it, not solving it, not running from it, is a skill, a muscle. And mine was completely atrophied from disuse, but muscles can be rebuilt. I am learning that grief that has never been expressed does not disappear. It relocates. It sets up residence in your back, in your jaw, in the short way you answer questions, in the distance you keep from people who want to be close. 40 years of unfelt things don't vanish. They wait. And one day in a therapist's office, they come out and they are loud and they are worth listening to. I am learning that my father did the best he could with what he had and what he was given, and I did the best I could with what I had and what I was given. And Elijah deserves better than what both of us were given, and I intend to give him better. That's what breaking a cycle looks like. It's not dramatic. It's just a phone call on a Saturday night where you say the thing you should have said years ago. My daddy used to say, from the pulpit, voice full and rolling, he used to say, the same God who brought you through what you came through is strong enough to carry you through what's coming. I heard that sermon 50 times as a boy, and I thought I understood it. I understand it differently now. Because what I've learned at 65 is that being carried doesn't mean being passive. Being carried means trusting something bigger than your own strength. It means admitting you don't have to do it alone. It means opening your hands, unclenching them from everything you've been gripping, and saying, I cannot carry all of this by myself, and I was never supposed to. I spent 65 years being strong. I am learning now to be open. Those are different things. I thought they were the same. They are not the same. Elijah is coming to Atlanta next month. First time he's visited in 3 years. He's bringing his girlfriend, Nina. I haven't met her yet. He called to tell me, and at the end of the call he said, Dad, I want to see the apartment, and I want to hear you play the guitar. I laughed. I said, It's not pretty. He said, I don't care. I just want to see you doing something you love. Something you love. My son wants to see me doing something I love. 65 years old. Just learning how to be seen. I'm going to tell you what I know. I know that being a man does not mean being a wall. Walls keep things out. Some things need to come in. I know that your children are watching you more carefully than you know and absorbing more than you intend, and you are teaching them what manhood looks like whether you mean to or not. So be intentional about what you teach. I know that the work was never the point. The work was the vehicle. The point was the life you were supposed to be building while you were busy building everything else. I know that it is not too late. I am going to say that again because some of you need to hear it like I needed to hear it. It is not too late. Not for the conversation with your son, not for the phone call to your daughter, not for the instrument in the closet, not for the therapy you keep saying you'll start, not for the life you put on hold until after. After is now. After has always been now. I turned 66 in 4 months. I'm having a party this year. First birthday party I've had since I was a kid. Elijah is coming. Marcus is coming. My sister Brenda is flying in from Memphis. Dr. Wynn has offered to not attend, which I appreciate. I'm going to play the guitar. Badly. Proudly. With full awareness that I am a 65-year-old man who is learning something new, and that is not embarrassing. That is extraordinary. My father used to say everything is a sign. Maybe he was right. Maybe the guitar was waiting in the silence for me to be ready. Maybe the silence was waiting for me to stop being afraid of it. Maybe 65 is not the end of something. Maybe 65 is just the first year I started listening. Daddy, I know you didn't know how to say it. I know you showed it in everything you did, every early morning, every sermon, every hand on my shoulder at the right moment. I know the silence wasn't emptiness. I know it was the shape love took in the world you came from. But I'm going to say it out loud. For both of us, because words matter, because our sons need to hear it, because it costs nothing and means everything. I love you, and I'm still learning. And it turns out 65 years in, I am just getting started. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a guitar to practice.